And then the biggest scene of the night, the scene that everyone's been waiting for. Jamie and Brienne.
Brienne. They call her Brienne in the show.
Brienne, yes.
We got yelled at last week.
Brienne. In my head, I'm sorry. Yes, Brienne is... earlier, I like that they're splitting up the scenes. I like that it's not one scene with them. So you get earlier in the episode when they're riding along, we hear The Bear and the Maiden Fair for the first time, which is a great song that gets trickled throughout the books. We finally get to hear it. And they're just sitting there bantering, more of that banter, who's the best fighter in the land. And then Jamie warns her of her impending night with these guys and that she will most likely get raped and beaten. And he kind of brings her down there. And then we see them at the very last scene. At this point, they're definitely Roose Bolton's men. They have taken her to rape her, and Jamie steps in and offers them gold and sapphires and barters them, and he thinks he's won these guys over. And we see the scene, we see the chop. So Jamie Lannister has now lost his hand, and key thing that if you haven't read the books, that is his sword hand. So he is now gone from probably the best fighter in the land to can't even hold a sword.
I wonder if they ever do any close-ups to him pulling on a sword, just to establish in the first couple seasons like that is his dominant hand, and that is really going to affect him. The one, if we want to transition into things from the book.
Well, one thing I just want to say is it proves one thing that you should pick up on is those are Roose Bolton's men. He offers them gold and sapphires, and they ask if that would save their head, if that would be enough to buy their head. It just proves how terrified Roose Bolton's men are of him, and they will not turn on him. Like, a lot of people in that kingdom for favor of Tywin Lannister and Jaime Lannister's weight in gold would have done anything, because they could have, started their own kingdom with that much gold, and those guys are terrified of Roose.
One line I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, he tells Jamie he's going to make him scream, and Jamie's like, ha, I don't... Give me your worst, I won't scream. Yeah. And I just remember the actual line from the end of the chapter said, and the blade came down and Jamie screamed. Which, that's probably his limit.
Something I really like about that scene, especially if you didn't know that chop was going to actually happen, was like, it's a very slow scene, and it's like, he's already out, kind of outwitted Brienne to be able to get a sword while he was still in chains. And you're like, man, this guy, he's kind of sly, like he can weasel his way out of any situation, and he's gonna get these guys to unchain him. Like, holy shit, you're like the best swordsman in all of Westeros is about to be unchained. What is he gonna do? And he's like, you already know that he wants to help Brienne not get raped, and he has like some sort of feelings, maybe not like a love interest, but some affection towards her. Like, he doesn't want to see her raped, and so we're like, what is he gonna do, man? He's gonna save the day. Like, this is the turning point. Jamie's gonna be good, and then like it's gone. Like that's typical Gurm, right? Like you really think something's gonna happen, and then just pulls a complete 180, just like the whole Ned scene in season 1.
Any other fantasy movie, they would have untied him. He would have grabbed the dude's dagger, stabbed him in the throat. She would have got out. They would have rode off into the sunset.
And that's why people love. They love Game of Thrones because of that. It's like they're willing to completely do something that's so
I have another
fixed.
I have another random book thing, and this is kind of speaking to the shortness of the episode.
Book.
Yeah.
This is now we're going to get into book changes or changes from the book, so then we'll get into spoilers.
Things that were different. And this could mean absolutely nothing because I don't think they ever explained it in any of the later books. But Catelyn's dad says Tansy before he dies.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. What was about that?
He throws that name out, and that's I don't know. Doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Am I supposed to tell you? Do you guys
want
to know?
We can say that. Maybe we can say that for the spoiler section.
Because Game of Thrones is riddled with like puzzles and riddles that you can piece together to complete a sort of subplot that's never really like big on the story. Is that something that's like completely contained within book 3 that is not really a spoiler?
I don't really remember, so I'll it's not a huge thing, and it's hinted at actually last night a few times. So
is it? Can I guess real quick?
Yeah.
Is it that Lysa had a miscarriage or?
Yes. Yeah. So the theory is that one night Littlefinger comes home drunk, climbs into Kat's bed. He thinks it's her bed. It's not. it's her sister's bed.
I don't know
They
that,
sleep together. That's why she thinks he's in love with her. That's why Kat doesn't understand why he's so in love with her, because they never had a physical relationship, and that's why he stands up for her honor. Then the sister tells her father about it. He makes her get an abortion with there's this stuff called it's like moon tea or tansa tea, it's a ingredient. And when they have the abortion, I think that's the fight between the Blackfish and the father, is one of the reasons that they split. I don't know if that ties in for sure, but it's definitely one of the, and that's just people have put it together. I don't know if it's true, but it kind of seems to fit everything. It's definitely one of those mysteries that has not been solved. Yeah. So who knows? But it plays into the Littlefinger storyline.
Should we put a spoiler dragon over that? Is that spoiler dragon?
I think that's
because you don't know. I mean,
that's theory dragon.
That's just silly forum theories.
And I think you see it last night when Littlefinger's like, oh well, when I go to Lysa, I'm already predisposed to being with her, and they do that cutaway shot of everyone else at the council rolling their eyes because they all kind of know.
Yeah, I mean, in the books, I don't remember if it's in the show, but yeah, Peter Baelish, he specifically says he's deflowered her before, he's done stuff.
Right.
So
it's not. I mean, that's just theory, and I could be completely wrong. So.
And then the scene in the brothel didn't happen in the.
Yeah, and
in the books, but whatever.
But
whatever.
Like
but you said you mentioned the transition of books. Maybe you just want to point in the significance of that.
Yeah, so I think really the brothel scene was just, like I said, to set up that character pod. Really, Tyrion's now in a place where he was in power last season. Now he's not, and so you're now seeing who actually he trusts, who his team is. So I think really that's all that was for. And, it's HBO. They can't go 2 episodes with no nudity. It's they got to throw a little bit in. So other than that, I don't have much to say. I really like this episode. We're getting into some bigger things. I don't know if there's any other spoilers we really want to cover. I don't think there are.
Nothing that jumps to mind if you
No, and nothing.
Which is refreshing.
We didn't talk about Dany.
Yeah, shit's about to go down.
Oh.
It's going to be awesome.
We didn't talk about Dany at all. So... I mean, not much happened there, really, other than the continuation.
It's done? Like the scenes from the next?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's done.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really setting up her getting the Unsullied. We see a little bit more of Jorah and Barristan the Bold. Barristan doesn't want slaves. Jorah does, because he knows that...
Did we skip over? I remember there were corpses that were all pointing some direction, and she went...
Yeah, in the books, it was I think that was when she was traveling from one city to the next, and the trail that connects those 2 cities is lined with corpses pointing this is where
they've completely cut her travels down though.
But my question was, did that already happen in the books and we've just kind of skipped over that, or
no? It's when she's traveling after the fact. So I mean, it's kind of spoilers, but between 2 cities. Okay. After events happen in city A and she's on her way to city B. Cool. Then that's where they see the corpses.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it happened in the books mostly. So no real big spoilers this week, guys. It's really...
So, well, I'll wrap it up with one last topic. I saw somebody on Twitter complain. I thought this was interesting. I disagree, but I thought it was an interesting comment that they were kind of getting out of the show because they're like, it's just a bunch of scenes. They're like, it doesn't seem like I watch an episode and I remember oh, that one episode was great because it had an arc to it and it was just a good themed episode. It seems more just kind of like, right, scene 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, moving on. Which my, counter to that is that it's refreshing television in that regard, that it's not it's very different from a show like I'm watching Fringe finally, and that show's great, but it's certainly formulaic, and you have characters in there where you're like, okay, I get what's going on, and yay, that was a fun episode, they've killed a monster, done. And this is not that show.
I guess my question is, have you watched any other HBO shows like The Wire or Treme or
even True Blood? Just boom, end. They don't really set things up.
Yeah, I mean, HBO is really in the game of making seasons that hold together. And
not individual
there will be a
shows,
full arc this season, but it's not really an individual episode. So it's I guess it's a complaint, but it's the format of the show. I don't know how else would you do it. You're gonna spend a whole episode on Rob and get his whole storyline,
and then most of the criticisms I levy on the show are taken with a grain of salt because this is not easy to do.
Well, at the sacrifice of having self-contained individual arcs within an episode, you're having lull moments that build up to certain events. Like, I'm with a lot of the scenes from this particular episode, you know where this path is going down towards, and it's just subtle things that make the payoffs even more grand,
Well, also, like you said, they transition between scenes really well. Like they'll reference a character, and then that's the next character you see. Like, it's not like there is no thought. Like, you go from a really high moment and then to a super low moment.
I think it's just mostly being able to identify a show. Like if you look back at season 1 and I told you the name of the episode, you'd be like, what? Whereas like Star Trek, you can be like, oh yeah, that's that Tribbles episode. It's like you can more quickly identify how episodes stand out in a single season. But again, different show. We mentioned the cakes that you brought in.
Pies for hot pie.
I brought in the Game of Thrones board game and the Game of Thrones card game. I wish I knew. This is the logo on the front for the company. I don't know the name of the company that publishes these. I played the card game this weekend. It was pretty fun. I tried to learn the board game on 2 separate occasions. The board game is extremely complicated. But these are pretty cool. And they actually, both games, while they look similar, they actually feature different art that is kind of aesthetically different. So it's fun to go through and see a different interpretation on Brian or Catelyn or Jaime Lannister or any of these characters. So check these out if you want to. You can probably pick it up at your local nerd store where nerd accessories are sold. Thank you so much for coming in. Amanda might return next week, and Ryan Stevens might be in.
We'll see. I'm out for the next 3 weeks.
Oh, well, there you go. So we'll have somebody else who's got to follow along.
Taking cooking classes in Europe, so you guys have fun without
right
me.
on.
I'll bring snacks back.
Yeah, hopefully you can bring some tasty stuff back. If there's a place to learn to cook GOT food, it's there.
I'll be there.
And thank you very much for filling in, sir. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week. Stay tuned.